Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys of Football. A lot of breaking news in the college football world. One of the bigger stories is Anthony Richardson declaring for the NFL draft in 2023. Very interesting prospect. We talked about him a lot in the summer. Kind of excited to talk about how we see him as a prospect after his third year in college, and then potentially where does Florida go with that quarterback position moving forward? Obviously Kitna, legal issues. Anthony Richardson now gone. Is it Jack Miller? Is it going to be Jaden Rashada's job? Kind of a lot of balls up in the air. Before we get into it, though, again, I just want to say thank you guys for the support you guys have shown the channel, especially the Gator fans. I mean, we talk a lot about this Florida Gators football team. They've been very exciting and very hot on the recruiting trail. And then there's a lot of buzz around what Billy Napier is doing to this program. Obviously not a star or a great first year, but you can kind of see the program going in the right direction. Kind of excited to talk a little bit about this. Dill, I'm going to kick it off to you. Let's start with Anthony Richardson as an NFL draft prospect.
This is, I think, a stunning move by him. It's a guy who I feel like could be a legitimate first round pick. If he, again, I don't get why he's not coming back to Florida for another year. I feel like you saw some progression this year in terms of from this year to last year, where he obviously was the starter. But God, the inconsistency is still very much there, and it's not inconsistency on like a small level. I mean, the ups and downs were so vast to where he was playing great. He looked like a legit first rounder, and then he could look like a guy who is borderline undraftable. So I just don't see why he's not coming back to Florida.
I'll tell you why I don't think he's coming back to Florida. And I think quite frankly, I think it makes a lot of sense. The quarterback class this year is there's not many guys that get you that excited. I mean, you look at some of the guys at the top of the board, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Yeah, sure. They're probably the top two quarterback prospects. Kind of hard to argue otherwise. Will Levis, not that impressive a year. And then a bunch of guys that you thought would be in there, guys like Tyler Van Dyke, Devin Leary, Sam Harmon, not so great of years. Like, I think there's a very real argument that Anthony Richardson might be quarterback 3, quarterback 4. Second, everyone's trying to win the Josh Allen sweepstakes. Like, I don't necessarily saying I agree with it, but the Bills took a flyer on Josh Allen. You look at what Josh Allen did at Wyoming, it was not impressive. Not a single year did he complete over 60% of his balls. Don't think he ever went over 2,500 yards passing. That being said, massive arm. He was a good athlete, and he's big. And it obviously worked out in Buffalo, and I think Anthony Richardson's probably betting that some teams are going to take a shot on him because you see the Howard serving arm. Like when he flashes, he flashes. He's the best athlete.
You got to think somebody's going to take a shot, but it's going to be hard to justify in the top 2 rounds. I feel like just because you can't miss. You can't miss in the first round. These teams that miss on quarterback set themselves back 4 or 5 years, and I just feel like what he's shown in college so far is giving way too high of a probability that it's just not going to work in college because you can't miss the throws he's missed, and you can't turn the ball over like he's turned it over when he's not playing well. And again, you just think you clean it up and for 1 year, and he's not that old, come back and be a legit first rounder. No,
the problem that I would argue is like who's he throwing to? I don't think the wide receiver room like Justin Short are probably going in the NFL draft. I think he actually already declared the wide receiver room was not that talented. It wasn't that productive. There wasn't a lot of guys, and it didn't really seem like an offense that was going to really be able to showcase the ability of a quarterback. They want to run the football a lot. They want to use him in the run game. And I think you might have just felt that. I come back, like, what else can I prove? Like, you know my abilities. You've seen, like, the highs that I can have. Let's just hope to get lucky and some team falls in love with it.
Stability. You prove the consistency, which is –
oh, yeah, and he's not –
the important – that's the important part of the game. I feel like people kind of want.
Yeah, but I also think the part of the game people want is the howitzer of an arm and the athlete and the size that he has. And I think there is probably an NFL team that takes a stab on him. We obviously have to get in and watch some more of Anthony Richardson and kind of – I'm interested to see where he shakes out for me because I know I'm going to love the trades and then I know I'm going to hate when he just buries balls or overthrows people by 10 feet. So we'll get into that. The next story is Florida's quarterback room, and for the college football fans out here, like where's Florida going to go with this quarterback room? Jaden Rashada obviously coming in as a true freshman. Is it going to be his room? I mean, Kitna obviously with legal troubles, I don't see him playing in 2023. Jack Miller transferred from Ohio State. he didn't really play I don't think he played at all
The
against
fact
Florida.
that he didn't come in behind Kitna makes me think he's just not really a part of that room in terms of what they're
Yes.
going to use. Because
And so there's two possibilities. I think it's Jaden Rashada's job as a true freshman, which I mean, if there's a guy, and we talked about when he committed to Miami, like how special it is. If there's a guy that is ready to play as a true freshman, it is Jaden Rashada. He's got the size, he has the arm talent, he will be ready to go. But the question is that there is a lot of very talented and very proven quarterbacks in the transfer portal. Dill, I'll ask you, what quarterback might make the most sense in this Billy Napier offense here? From the portal.
Who's a guy who's jumping out to me and I think could do a similar thing to what Richardson did is Spencer Sanders. And he's a guy who I don't really know why he's in the portal. It feels like I don't think he's going pro. That's one thing.
That's why he's in the portal. He'd be declared for the draft. He's going
maybe
pro.
you try to go to Florida, make a little bit of money at Florida this year. It's a team that certainly is very supportive of their football program and a guy who I think is a perfect 1 year replacement rental that a team like Florida, who is very much not in win now yet, but hopes to be on the precipice and string together a couple of years and build their recruiting base, which they're doing, obviously. So that feels actually like a great fit, honestly. He does a very similar game and can give them a chance to win 9-10 games possibly next year.
Yeah, I think that might be the one of the more perfect fits. The guy who jumped out for me is Brennan Armstrong. He's a guy that was considered maybe a first round pick coming into this year, and then Tony Elliott just destroyed his career. That offense just did not suit Brennan Armstrong well at all. And I'm not going to put his bad year at Virginia on him. I think he's still a baller, and he's another guy that's gritty with his legs, but you're going to get a much more consistent quarterback. And to be honest, I think Florida could benefit from that. Like, Brennan Armstrong's not going to miss throws. He turns the ball over.
Brennan Armstrong's probably a better choice, honestly, just in terms of like what he's put out on the field. Because you're right, his 2021 year was really, really good.
Disgusting. I mean, it was so good. And he's a guy that's a veteran who, and I think you have the right idea. I think you get like a 1 year rental, the guy that probably go to the draft or go pro after 1 year. And then Jaden Rashada is ready during his second year at Florida to kind of take over. And that's when you kind of make your push to go win the SEC and compete for a national championship like the Gator fans expect. But it is, in my mind, important to get a veteran in there.
And this is a good program for a veteran to go to. I think it's on the rise. They looked way better this year than last. So you're getting better. I don't think you're going to let's say a Pitt where Slovis ended up last year and they were taking a step backwards. I think I almost kind of think of this as what Daniels did at LSU. That was a good fit for him for 1 year. I think this job is a very similar job for a guy like a Jaden Daniels who, again, wasn't ready to make the pro jump, but could put out a productive year of college football and help a team kind of ascend.
Yeah, and it seems so important to not – you've seen like kind of the failures of just throwing a true freshman out there and not really having anybody to – if he struggles to come in and kind of steady the ship. I think Florida coming in and getting a veteran guy who is a proven quantity and say he starts all of 2023 and Jaden Rashada just gets reps. I think like Michigan and Clemson to an extent kind of showed the paved the way for that. Like you have a 5-star legit bona fide stud true freshman quarterback. You can get him some work in garbage time, even some more meaningful snaps like JJ did. But having a veteran that you're not putting too much on Jaden Rashada's plate early in his career, I think can really help.
Well, that's I guess when I'm thinking about it, like you can either throw your freshman in, start them, and then it's very hard to bench them.
Yes,
go back to him because I feel like once you bench a guy, it just feels like you've quit on him in a sense. And again, like what you talk about with a Clemson, they never had to quit on Cade Klubnik. In a sense, they did the reverse, where they let DJ. Everybody wanted to see Cade Klubnik, and essentially when he went in, he could do no wrong because I think Clemson fans were getting so frustrated with the play of DJ that there wasn't a ton of pressure on him because he couldn't have disappointed the fans to the extent they could have.
Just go out and not bury it in the dirt a bunch of times. You'll be all right.
But I feel like that was not a bad setup for him, and it wasn't a terrible setup for Trevor Lawrence either. Again, like a guy who waited a couple weeks and then, okay, well, I guess you could argue Dabo didn't pull the trigger early enough this year like he did with Trevor Lawrence, but he gave Cade Klubnik a shot to kind of be the hero and have, I think, an uber sky-high confidence, which I think he does, that he's going to be the guy. And that seems like a position Florida's going to be in to me.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of ways Florida could go. I think getting a veteran in the portal would make the most sense just to at least build the room, because you lost a lot of guys. Kitna, Anthony Richardson, and then Del Rio Wilson, who transferred to Syracuse. Like, there's been a lot of quarterbacks that have left that program in the last couple of years. Go get a veteran guy who you kind of know what to expect, and then build around Jaden Rashada. Again, Florida's not winning a national championship in 2023. But getting that team going in the right direction.
You can get the bridge year, like of Michigan and Clemson, I think, are kind of following that mold.
One more thing before we exit, DJU, and he, I think he's going out west. I think that makes the most sense for him, but he also doesn't seem like a horrible replacement. Maybe
that's what I was thinking. Like, just a pure similar play to Richardson. I'd say they are similar guys, albeit DJ's a far less superior athlete, but it sounds like DJ's going to go where his brother goes, is what I don't know. That's a report I heard on Twitter that might be totally made up, but that kind of makes sense. I feel like it may make sense for a coach like Brian Kelly to bring DJ's brother, who's obviously anywhere in the country would take him. Could you kind of bring a splash recruit and take DJ for a couple of years, who's not a bad quarterback by any stretch, but is not.
He just needs I don't think that Clemson offense was doing him any favors. I don't think the wide receiver play was great. I don't think the offensive line was great. And I don't think the play calling was great. Like, I think Dabo needs to hire outside of an offense, outside the program for just kind of revamp this offense. That's enough about Clemson, though. That's for another time. Anthony Richardson going to the draft. He's going to be one of the more interesting. Him and Will Levis are like the two interesting prospects in this quarterback group. And then what does Florida do in the transfer portal? Because I have a feeling they're going to get active, and they do need a quarterback to kind of be a veteran in that locker room. Appreciate you guys checking us out again. If you do like the content, especially you Gator fans, we talk a lot of Gator football. Consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.